Hi there. We'll be going over this Mismaloya Beach video. It was shot here the 14th of December 2021. We're walking through one of the restaurants here on the southern side of the beach. It's called Las Gaviotas. There are quite a few other ones. I'll be mentioning them now. Here we can see the beach, the bay, the little bay, Mismaloya Bay, Mismaloya Beach. We're right here south of the river mouth, southwest, and we'll be going over the beach, the whole beach, and commenting a little bit about the place. No, so here we're going south to the southwest along the beach. There are 9 restaurants along the edge here. Las Gaviotas I already mentioned. There's one called Chuyita, another one called Pelayo, Coral, Carlos, Loco Camarena, Los Pescadores, North Town, Lalo, and Teos. The easiest one to recognize, or the easiest ones to recognize, are Las Gaviotas, which is the first one right beside the river, and Teos, which is the last one here with 2 floors. I think with the one with I'm not sure if it's the orange one or the one right beside. I have to check that out, but it's the last one along the beach. We're looking northward. You can rent these beach chairs, and normally if you buy some drinks or things like that, they'll include the tables and the beach seats, beach chairs. And you can sometimes also use their they have a place where you can shower, take the salt off when you are leaving the beach. This is the end of the beach, the southwestern end. There's a place here where they offer massage, and the other one here offers activities and rentals and tours. They have kayaks, boogie boards, and stand-up paddle options. Maybe they offer something else. Some of them might include tours or boat tours to the different areas around the bay. Maybe the Los Arcos, the Arches, these small little islands that you have here to the left. You can see them right there, right in the middle now. Those are the Las Peñas, the Arches, Los Arcos de Mismaloya, the Arches of Mismaloya, which are 5 small, one very big one, and smaller islands, small islands, where that are part of a national marine park. This access road is not in good shape now. In 2012, when I went, it was much better. You could almost go through it in a car, but it's been eaten by the sea and most surely by the waves. There's been some strong storms passing close to Puerto Vallarta in the last 10 years, and they must have eaten away on this path. It's, I think, the paved road, maybe a modified paved road from the time of La Noche de la Iguana, the night of the iguana. I can imagine they repaved it, or they paved it, because I think it was a dirt road when the night of the iguana was filmed. And they paved it for some other movie they had in the 70s, maybe also when they had the restaurants at the set of the night of the iguana. So it's been falling apart now. You can still walk, but it's not easily accessible. It's not in wheelchair. There's not much to see here anyway. It's mostly for history aficionados, no? I've found iguanas here though. That can be fun. And so anyway, this is here to the left up the hill is the set of the night of the iguana. This part was used in the movie when the bus arrives with the tourists. so this is sort of interesting to visit. No? You can get a good view also of the bay, of the beach, looking north. So you can see the arches there, and three of the 5 islands. The night of the iguana. There's a long story. There's a lot of all this information is on puertovallarta.net. Both biographies of John Huston, Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, and the night of the iguana itself. No, some of the story behind. But in summary, there's 2 sides. No, from the Mexican side, Guillermo Wulff, and from the the USA side, John Huston and Ray Stark and Tennessee Williams as the main starting points. No, from the Mexican side with Guillermo Wulff, he was a Mexican Mexico City engineer, or I think engineer, but he worked mostly in construction and built many of the most iconic houses and villas in what's known as the Gringo Gulch in Puerto Vallarta. But one of his projects was here. He had gotten a concession from the Mexican government to develop a real estate project here on Mismaloya. So he had that in his mind, and he was developing that project when simultaneously John Huston and Ray Stark were planning a movie. No? So that's the Mexican side. On the USA side, the North American side, we have then John Huston, Ray Stark, and Tennessee Williams. Tennessee Williams had gone on vacation to Acapulco in 1940 and stayed in a little hotel there, and he was inspired by the whole situation. No, these people lying around in the sun, drinking, getting drunk in the middle of the Second World War. No, so he was inspired, and he wrote a short story called "The Night of the Iguana," inspired in what he said, located in Acapulco. No? So he published it, and here we have the iguana. Well, now you know why it's an iguana. It's the night of the iguana, and it's Tennessee Williams' fault. Here we can see the what's left of the pier that the team and the actors and the directors used when arriving here at Mismaloya. And you have here the stairs. They would get off the boats on a floating platform, and then up here, and then walk up the stairs to the set. There's a little plaque here in memory of the 2 important movies that have been shot here. Here you have the staircase here to the right. I'm actually going to go up the stairs. They would continue up the hill to the set. The Night of the Iguana was then adapted to Broadway and was quite successful. And in 1962, Ray Stark got the idea of adapting The Night of the Iguana, the Broadway stage play, to a movie. And because it was placed or located in Acapulco, Mexico, he said, we need somebody that's expert in Mexico. And who was the Mexico guru at the time? John Huston. He had already shot movies in the country. He had lived here, so he was the obvious option for the movie. And he was contacted by Ray, and he liked the idea. They agreed, and then started looking for a location. And that's when Sidney Bartlett, an author, screenplay, what do you call him? Screenwriter, producer, had already heard of Guillermo Wulff's project here in Mismaloya, and connected them together. So at some point, Guillermo Wulff, Ray Stark, and John Huston got together and agreed on a win-win project. Instead of building a light, disposable set, they would put more money in to build a stronger, more durable set buildings that could later be used as the basis for his real estate project. They would participate in the earnings, and Guillermo Wulff would benefit from the financing of the set, and at the same time the prestige, this Hollywood set and the Hollywood what do you say? Yeah, the prestige given by the Hollywood's interest in the area would then be rubbed off on this future real estate project. So there was a win-win there, and they agreed and they started the project that way. So that's why we still have the set there, even though it's maybe decaying year by year, but it's still standing, and it's still standing because it was built to last, as much as possible in these weather conditions. So that's sort of the background as to why Mismaloya has something to do with the Night of the Iguana. So when the movie production started in September of 1963, Puerto Vallarta was received an enormous amount of artists and stars from Hollywood, including Richard Burton, Ava Gardner as the main actors, Deborah Kerr, and Lyon as secondary but important actresses, and of course John Huston and their whole entourage. No, they would bring their wives, their lovers, their assistants, their family. In the case of Lyon, she brought her boyfriend and mother came along. In the case of Richard Burton, he came with Elizabeth Taylor. Both of them were married at the time with other people, and they were lovers. And this Taylor came along to make sure that Richard Burton behaved, especially with Ava Gardner in the movie. She was a very, what would you say? Well, she was known for being a little bit. For being a little bit uncontrollable. So it was necessary for Liz Taylor to come along. So anyway, they arrived. The whole town was starstruck. No? They would see them each morning sailing off to Mismaloya, because they didn't want to stay in Mismaloya. There wasn't that much comfort here. It was rather basic. No? They'd rather stay in town, so they would go back to town after each day. And here we can see some of the jet skis. You can get jet skis to rentals. You can also start off your tours from here, from Mismaloya, southward or northward, mostly southward. Seeing here the little restaurants by the edge, and the mouth of the river here. I'm not going to cross the river. I'm actually avoiding the waves too. I use my hiking shoes, and it's easier for me to continue with the shoes on. So in your case, if it's not rainy season, if the water's not too wild, it's easy just to cross the mouth of the river and continue walking south, north in this case, along the beach. In my case, I went over the bridge, which was so this is the Mismaloya River, creek. It's very small at the time. It was very small at the time. In rainy season, it grows much bigger. Mismaloya comes from a Nahuatl word called Mismaloya, which is means the place where you can catch fish with your hands. It's not necessarily the case nowadays, but you can imagine that it was like that in the past. Barceló. We're gonna walk along inwards, and we're gonna cross the river.
Okay.
And the bridge is right beside the Gaviotas Restaurant. So here we're crossing. You can see here on the right the little road that it's a dead end road that to the right. If you go along the right, to the right, you arrive at the highway, which will take you northward to Puerto Vallarta, southward to Boca de Tomatlan. There's a little area here, just as they do in Boca de Tomatlan. They use the river to, like, it's like an arm of the river, or not, a little curve of the river, where it's a little deep, the water, to protect their boats. Most of them are water taxis, some of them are fishermen. This is the end of this little road. And now we're gonna, this is sort of halfway along the beach, huh? More or less in the midpoint of the beach. Now we're gonna walk northward, northeast, to the northeast, with the Barceló hotel on our right hand side. The Barceló resort, up until November 2021, was painted in a fuchsia color, sort of strong pink color, because of another, in this case, a series, TV series for Apple TV called Acapulco. Once again, Acapulco, but filmed in Puerto Vallarta. It's a comedy with Eugenio Derbez, a very famous Mexican actor. That was premiered October 8th, 2021. The hotel was painted back to its original color by November, but the series has been extended one more year, one more season, no? So I imagine they're going to paint it back to that horrible color. Maybe. Who knows what they're going to do. Anyway. So there you have it. Any movie that is located in Acapulco ends up being shot in Puerto Vallarta. Must be because it's nicer here. I'm not much of a fan of Acapulco. It had its time in the 40s with Tennessee Williams, but not any longer, I'd say. Who knows? I've not been there for a long time, so maybe it's alright. Anyway, here we're walking along. We'll soon arrive at the end of the northern end of the beach, northeastern end of the beach, because at this point we're sort of almost on the last third of the bay, Banderas Bay. You can at times find there's some kayaks here, but I think these are from the hotel. At times you can find kids enjoying wakeboards, which are used here to slide along the edge of the beach between the waves and the dry sand. It's a fun sport, but dangerous if you're not flexible, because you might fall. In any case, we're arriving right here at the end of the beach. There's some stairs going up, and there's a path that takes you to along the edge, the wall, the containment wall of La Jolla de Mismaloya Condominiums, which are those white you can see there. There's also a tennis court there, which you can see when you stop by the lookout. Right beside La Jolla de Mismaloya Condominiums, there's a lookout where many people stop and take photos of the beach from above. And that's right behind this tennis field that we have with the green fencing. Normally there'll be people enjoying the sun here, but because it's not the high season yet, mid-December, it was empty. It was good for me. I wanted to get a good shot there, so great. Bad thing, we had the sun right in our eyes, so it's not perfect for filming, but it's good enough. it's not perfect. It would be a matter of arriving earlier in the morning, or maybe mid-year, around June, when the sun is further to the north. We'll have seen the whole beach from the northern. A little bit of the hotel. We'll continue up these stairs and follow the path along the wall to the, in this case, that's more or less north. I think it's more or less to the north. You see the beach again. Yeah, there we go. Never been up this path, so I took advantage. Maybe it was closed in the past. Who knows? I don't remember having access to this sendero, this path, in the past. Anyway, we're gonna have some views of the bay as we go along. Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor installed themselves in the city. They bought a house, actually 2 houses, and well, actually 3 when you think about it. It was the Casa Kimberly, then the house over on the other side of the street, and then later on Casa Bursus, which is now Hacienda Los Angeles. I can't remember exactly, but it's a little boutique hotel nowadays. So here we're walking along the path. And in the case of John Huston, he stayed in the city in the town, changing from house to house, renting different houses, until in the end he installed himself in Las Caletas, which is a beach further south, past Mismaloya, past Boca de Tomatlan, and then along the edge of the bay by sea, past Las Animas, and he installed himself in Las Caletas, where he lived 10 years. Despite it not appearing on his Wikipedia entry, he spent almost all his last years of life in Las Caletas, where he'd plan his projects and live a very idyllic life. No? This is the end of the path. Now we're going back. We'll walk along the edge and then up and out the road to the highway. Las Caletas is part of a tour called through the tour operator called Vallarta Adventures. You can't access the beach without them. It's not freely. There's no free access there. Mismaloya is south of Puerto Vallarta, 9 miles south. There's public transport. You can take a bus. It's about $50, and it takes about 25-30 minutes to get to Mismaloya. So it's easy to get here. You can also take an Uber or some other car sharing service. So it's actually a nice trip. You have these 9 restaurants I mentioned as options for lunch or a dinner, and you can bring your own food along if you want. So it's a great little day trip. The waves are normally very good. If you want to surf, maybe later. It'll depend on the tides. No? This day I visited was very calm. Nowadays, people, I think only Puerto Vallarta remembers the night of the Iguana. No, it's not that bad, of course, because John Huston has some fans still, and Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor too. So there's a little bit of the legend still it's still known, but they are becoming part of the past. So it's a little bit of nostalgia more than anything.
Yeah, I thought it's.
There have been other movies shot either here or in the vicinity. In the 80s, late 80s, there was Predator. It's in Eden. It's further, it's from Mismaloya, but further in the hills. And there's been, I think it was Blindside, as it was called. There's another movie. They even had some shots here at the hotel. The hotel. When you're in Mismaloya, on the beach, you can also go and visit the little town that's on the other side of the highway. We'll see it now that we walk along the road that takes you out to the bus stop and to the highway. That's where you'll be able to cross into town, into the little town. There's a zoo for people that like zoos. There's one there, Mismaloya, Vallarta Zoo, which has the unique characteristic of actually asking the visitors to feed the animals. You'll get a paper bag with carrots and different foods for different animals, so you'll be able to feed the giraffe, the ducks and birds, and the rabbits and other small animals there along the way with this food pack that you get along with your entry. Here you can see the locals pushing a boat up the river to the parking lot a little further up, where they protect their boats and water taxis. There's a bit of Barceló. They have their own little sign there for photos. A panoramic of the bay before we go out to the street. Before we walk out. This river changes. Of course, the width and the location of the river changes season to season. It can grow pretty big when it's in the rainy season. At this time, December, it's sort of past the rainy season, so it's a little smaller than normally. It's you can walk over without much trouble. Las Gaviotas is the restaurant you can see here in the background. That's the one right on the corner. Now up on the street, this in the past was not too far in the past. When I visited in 2012, 2012, it was a dirt road. So now it's a nice cobblestone street with a little sidewalk, and well kept and clean, like that. Hopefully it's always like that, and they're doing a good job at least. It also helps that it's not high season. Here's what I was saying, the parking lot now. They have their water taxis, and some of the fishermen must park their boats here for the night and for protection too. There's a lot of nice blackbirds here. They're taking baths in the river. They're cute. There's a lot of them around town too. They're always squeaking, squeak, squeak all the time. Saw a woodpecker here along the way. And I imagine going further, they're the blackbirds. Further inland, Eden, for example, and Edenva, which are two places further up the road from Mismaloya, they have some incredible nature. There comes a birdie. Okay, those are the noisy ones. I think they're related to magpies. Fun birds. Anyway, There's some small stores along the way. You get your chips, drink, some beer, I imagine, and there's some of them that have a few beach accessories like sunscreen and floaties. So that's an option. No? The other is that you have these bridges over the river. There are a few of them. Two of them, I think, some of them take you over to some extra restaurants. There's one, I think, called Restaurant Chuyita, which you can access from crossing one of these bridges. I've just never visited them, so it's future project. It's not that the road is not that long. I mean, in 5 minutes you arrive at the beach, maybe even less. Just taking it easy. So if you take the bus from Puerto Vallarta, you get off at Barceló. You know you'll soon be getting off the bus when you pass the Arches. These the 5 small islands in the sea. If you go and drive by them, you know that the next stop it will be Barceló. And you'll notice because you go sort of down the hill, past the condominium, past the lookout, and there's when you arrive at the hotel, you'll know. You can always ask the driver, the chauffeur, to tell you when you arrive at Mismaloya. But you'll notice. Found this terrace. It was open, and gave me an opportunity to see to shoot the river a little bit further up. I hadn't actually seen this part of the river before. So anyway, we're arriving. Barcelo's right there to the left. No? We're arriving soon at the highway. Buses they go by regularly. I think it's no more than you can see the bus right here at the end. That's one arriving, continuing down south to Boca de Tomatlán, and they pass by each 5-10 minutes more or less. You can catch a bus. So, and then right about where the bus is, you cross on the other side of the street, and there's the entrance to the little town of Mismaloya. Anyway, hope you like the video. Please like it, subscribe to our channel so you know when we publish new videos. Leave your comment. If there's anything we can shoot that you want to see, tell us. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. Till the next one.